So this may be an unpopular opinion, but I'm not a fan of Master of Mankind. Let me start off by saying that I am a big fan of Aaron Dembski-Bowden, and I have enjoyed his books all the way back since he did Katie and Blood. I mean, Guardsmen versus Zombies, you can't really beat that. And ever since then, the books have been great. First Heretic, Hell's Reach, and the Black Legion novels are just brilliant. Not to mention the Night Lords trilogy. When I heard from the man himself, and I think it was the 2017 or 2018 Heresy Weekender, that he was writing a story about the Emperor, I was excited because as an author, Aaron Dembski-Bowden can tap into the viewpoints that we don't really usually see from sort of, it comes from different angles, and that's what makes it quite interesting. But after reading Master of Mankind, something just did not ring true with me. And that something is the betrayal of the Emperor in the book. The Emperor in the Master of Mankind is cold and logical, who always refers to the Primarchs as numbers rather than names, and this is quite a stark contrast to how he's sort of typically portrayed in other novels, in the games, and in certain aspects of the lore itself. Now, I understand that the author's choice of portrayal may draw attention to the fact that what we see as the Emperor could be Imperial propaganda. And, we don't always know the Emperor himself because it's all smoke and mirrors, and is it all just, what he lets out there, or is this a real interpretation? But it's just hard to get around and hard to really enjoy, I find, this portrayal of the Emperor. The counter to that would be that the Emperor of Mankind in this one is ironically inhuman, but he was never cruel. The Emperor in the lore is sort of dedicated to finding the best way forward for humanity, bringing humans into... unfortunately, he brings them into compliance, and he purges those that are so far away from the human genome that he doesn't consider them human anymore. But he does what he does for humanity and to ensure its survival. And he is stated in canon to have spent some quality time with certain Primarchs to get to know them and get to understand them. And if they were just scientific experiments and expendable assets, why would he bother? Master of Mankind, basically the shit has hit the fan. There's no denying that. The Emperor is extremely standoffish. He is almost like a completely different person. He sort of knows that sooner or later he is going to have to deal with Horus, the favoured son, but not really in this book. You could imply that, for lack of a better term, he's attempting to be professional in front of his custodians so that they know that, he will do what needs to be done when the time comes. And that, the father-son dynamic is not something that will get in his way. As I say, none of these interpretations are confirmed in the book, and as far as Master of Mankind is concerned, the Emperor is practically an alien himself, who sees the Primarchs as tools designed to get what he needs, set in stone, which is the Imperium of Man. And, that he considers them potentially failed experiments, aka those who turn to chaos. They are to be destroyed without mercy. This is very much counter to the sort of next portrayal of the Emperor we get, which is in the Buried Dagger. Now, before I get on to that bit, I know some of you may completely agree with that. There is evidence that supports the interpretation. I just wonder if choosing to come down so hard on that side of the argument, one interpretation of the character, was the best idea. Should we really have had a book from the Emperor's perspective in the first place? He is technically a creature that is beyond understanding. He had planned everything for such a long time that it could be a mind that is very difficult to decipher. Almost akin to the Tyranid hive mind, where you'll never get a book from the Tyranid's point of view because it's a creature that is beyond human understanding. And in a way, maybe the Emperor was like that too. It's okay to see him from a third person perspective where he maybe stands and speaks with people, but you don't really want to see inside his head. It kind of ruins the mystery. But that being said, here are some interesting points to consider. And I go back to the bit where I said earlier on about the buried dagger. There is a bit in the last third of the buried dagger, which was written by James Swallow, in which the Emperor comes to speak with the knights errant in person, and he talks about how he trusts them and how he's disappointed that they're having to fix his mistakes. He does come across as quite a powerful yet parental figure who has personally taken the time to come and see relatively standard Space Marines. Yes, they are captains, they are characters in some instances, but they're just Space Marines, you know, there's nothing really that special about them, and yet he does come to see them to make sure that, you know, have a chat with them, to know that they were chosen by him and Malkador, and how their next great task, shall we say, the formation of the Grey Knights, is something that needs to be done, because they now see the future that's going to happen and they need to be ready. And this is also a very stark contrast to how he was portrayed in Master of Mankind. I suppose another example to that would be the audiobook The Lightning Tower, which was one of the very first audiobooks that I think Black Library had done, or audio drama, shall we say. Rogel Dorn is constantly sort of acting out the siege of the Imperial Palace using a tactical display, and he keeps resetting the parameters to certain Primarchs to see what's the best way to defend against them. And in the background, all he hears is, "Play it out, simulation after simulation if you like, but I know you won't fail me when the time comes." Now, from the point of view of a rather cold, methodical arsehole that is portrayed in Master of Mankind, would he have really spoken to one of his quote-unquote scientific experiments just to give him a few kind words? I don't really think so. And I suppose my final example would be the short story The Last Church. In this one, the Emperor has a rather long discussion with the last priest on Terra as his Thunder Warriors and Custodians are standing outside getting ready to destroy it. Now, if you haven't read this or seen the sort of motion animation that's on YouTube, I would recommend you go and take a look at it, because it's a rather lovely character piece. But in this story, the Emperor and this last priest sort of have a rather long debate about how the world has went, how he was once a soldier, and how he saw the face of God, not realizing that that was the Emperor, and how he has real belief. And because of that belief, he does kind of win the moral high ground, even against the Emperor, and chooses to stay in his church as it gets burnt down, instead of going with the Emperor, who does give him the opportunity to come with him. And in a way, that also shows that if the Emperor was cold, methodical, you know, just sort of not really that caring, he wouldn't have wasted his time having this debate with a rather simple old man. Now, the three sort of examples I mentioned are stories that I do quite enjoy. And when I would read or listen to Master of Mankind, I do get tonal whiplash. It does take me right out of the book when he's portrayed in that light. The Emperor's character in Master of Mankind completely undermines everything the loyal Marines are fighting for in the Heresy. Basically, in a way, Master of Mankind sort of implies that Horus was right. And I do wonder if Aaron Dembski-Bowden has spent too much time writing Chaos Space Marines, because some of the books he had before this were the Night Lords trilogy and The First Heretic and The Betrayer. But in conclusion, he is a fantastic author, and I'm still looking forward to seeing his next book, which is the Siege of Terra one that he's writing. But Master of Mankind does not do it for me at all. But what was your interpretation? Did you enjoy the book? Were you not a fan? Has it got good points, bad points? Leave your comments in the section below, and as usual, please like, subscribe, and do all that usual stuff. Thanks now. Bye-bye.